John Paul Jones is probably the most famous naval officer in American history. His name, by the way, was not John Paul Jones. His name was John Paul. And John Paul was born in Scotland, grew up near the coast, and went to sea at an early age. Ended up sailing in the West Indies in a somewhat obscure kind of way. The records are not always clear. John Paul got into a bit of difficulty on one of his cruises. He was captain of a small vessel. And this difficulty resulted in the death of one of his seamen. And so he was accused of murder. So he decided to perhaps change his venue. And so he came to America, came to Virginia, right on the eve of the American Revolution. Good timing. He arrived just in time as the revolution was getting underway. He had some political connections in the Continental Congress, and he used them to get a commission in the Continental Navy. In the very early days of the Revolution, he was commissioned a lieutenant in the Continental Navy. One of his first voyages was with Isaac Hopkins. An American fleet actually sailed from Philadelphia and captured the Bahama Islands. And Jones was one of the officers in that successful expedition. His reputation grew, and after that he took command of ever larger vessels as the war went on. But John Paul Jones always wanted a bigger ship, always wanted a bigger ship. He was something of an annoyance to the Congress, pestering them all the time. And so finally, the decision was made that they'll send John Paul Jones to France, and he can pester Benjamin Franklin. Franklin, of course, was our representative in France, and most people thought that Franklin could get almost anything out of the French. And so the thought was, well, Jones will go to France, and Franklin will get the French to give Jones a big ship. So Jones sailed to France in the sloop of war Ranger, which had been built in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He gets to France and begins his lobbying for a larger ship, but without much success, and he becomes as much of a pest to Franklin as he had been to the Congress in Philadelphia. And so Jones, instead of getting a bigger ship, takes Ranger and sails around the British Isles, sails up in the Irish Sea, up to a place called Belfast in Northern Ireland. And there in the harbor of Belfast, Ranger engaged in a battle with a British warship, HMS Drake. And it's one of those, as they would say in the 18th century, a rollicking engagement in which Jones wins. It's quite significant that an American continental naval vessel beats one of His Majesty's vessels. And so Jones then returns back to France, his reputation enhanced, certainly, and still pestering for a bigger ship. I want a bigger ship because, as he once put it, I intend to sail in harm's way. Well, finally, Franklin comes through, and he gets the French to offer to him and to Jones a larger vessel. It's an old East Indiaman. That is to say, this is a fairly large sailing vessel that has been used in the trade with the East Indies, not the West Indies, but all the way to the East Indies. She's old, she's cranky, as they might say, a little bit leaky. She isn't very beautiful. Her name is the Duke of Duras. That's her French name, the Duke of Duras. So Jones, seeing this as frankly, his only opportunity, he's not keen on taking the ship, but on the other hand. And so he takes command, and then, in order to honor Franklin, he renames the ship Bonhomme Richard, Good Man Richard, which is intended to honor Benjamin Franklin for his role as being the publisher of Poor Richard's Almanac. So now they have to outfit the Bonhomme Richard to prepare for this epic voyage against the British. And they do. Jones sets sails in Bonhomme Richard, along with a few other smaller vessels. And their goal is to sail all around the British Isles, terrify the British Isles, and show them just what the American Continental Navy can do.